Hello there, my name is Tim, and on this episode of the Propping Block, I'm going to show you how I made this. This is the fertility idol that Indiana Jones takes in the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And now I also made this little display stand base here for it, both 3D printed. So, you know, if anyone has a printer and wants to print these, I'll drop the links down in the description. So let's just get right to it. Now, usually I like to give a little supply list for what I used to make this, but for this it was pretty straightforward. It was just my 3D printer to print it, a bunch of sandpaper, a bunch of paint, ton of clear coat, and just some little moss. A little bag of moss here I got from Michael's, and also a little bag of rocks that I use on my Nightingale display stand. And that's it. So let's just get to the printing. Amen. Alright, so this is fresh off the printer. First thing I gotta do is remove
are we not supposed to talk
all these supports. No, you can talk through it, that's fine.
Damn
That's
it.
fine. I got a couple special guests behind me.
Oh.
So this will be fascinating.
Heard.
Oh my
That's
God.
beautiful.
It's a sweet
Right?
butt.
Isn't that a sweet butt?
Crack it up. That was a nice one.
Oh, you gotta put a lot of force
Isn't
into
that
that
satisfying,
shit.
peeling the plastic off things?
Oh, look at that! One shot!
Oh,
What's
wow.
that baby coming out the bottom of it?
Look at that! Yep.
It's got some tits
Look at them
too.
little... Hey, watch your mouth. This is a family channel.
That's a
Oh,
wise
nips.
move.
That was actually surprisingly quick. There we go. Now I have to sand the ever-loving shit out of it, so that'll be next.
You gotta play dentist, huh?
So I started sanding it a little bit just to see how much of a pain in the ass it's gonna be, and yeah, it's gonna be a massive pain in the ass. So I'll see you in a few days when I'm done with that. Okay, this thing is a fucking nightmare to sand. I've sanded it for so long, and it doesn't really look like I've sanded it at all. There's so many tiny little parts to it that you have to sand around, all these little curves and contours. It's an absolute nightmare. And then there's this, all these little wavy little things of the hair. That's just damn near impossible to sand, so I'm just gonna filler prime the shit out of it and see if that makes it any better, because I don't want to fucking sand this anymore. Well, that didn't hide much, but I started sanding down all these ridges on the back. It's looking a little bit better, but Jesus, it's tedious. So I'm gonna sand the whole thing down again, hit it with another layer of filler primer, sand that down, and then see where I'm at with that. Alright, I've sanded down most of it as best as I can. So before I put the next coat of primer on, I'm gonna put a bunch of wood filler on the bottom of this, because it's pretty, that's just, I can't sand that down. So after that coat of filler primer, I got really sick and tired of sanding, so I just set that aside for like 2 weeks while I worked on some other projects. Finally came back to it, finished the sanding. I started working on the base, and I had footage of all this. I think I accidentally deleted it, freeing up space on my phone, but I just hit the base with primer. It didn't need to be sanded at all. And then the next step for the idol was a little coat of glossy black. Okay, I got the paint on there, so while that's drying, the primer on here is dry. So I'm going to take that out and hit it with this stone texture paint.
I'm not supposed to do this type of thing. I'm a Christian.
Alright, that is dry now. So now I'm going to put the first layer of gold on it. And I got this stuff here, this Rust-Oleum Mirror Effect Gold. Now, its intended use is to be sprayed on the back side of some glass, so you still have the other side that's glossy and reflective and gives it that mirror look. So spraying it directly on here will not be a mirrored effect, but maybe if I spray a bunch of layers of a high gloss clear coat over it, that might make the effect work. We'll see.
I'm not supposed to do this type of thing. I'm a Christian.
Alright, that's pretty nice and shiny, but I'm gonna need it shinier. Although I would be completely happy with that as it is, but you can't really touch it, because the way these metallic paints work is if you touch it, most of the shininess rubs off and it dulls the hell out of it. So I'm gonna start hitting it with coat after coat of clear and see if I can get it extra shiny. Also, this is dry. Looks pretty nice. Before I glue it together, I'm gonna put a dark wash over it and add some little mossy bits around here and some other little colors and all that. So, let's start with the clear coat. First coat of clear is dry. I'm actually surprised it didn't dull down the shine that much, so kind of excited. I'm about to put another coat on it and we'll see how that looks. Alright, so while I wait for the second coat on the idle to dry, I'm going to hit this base here with a dark wash. Mostly black, good amount of brown, and then just a wee bit of green, and some water, and then a couple drops of just dish soap, just to kind of help it flow better. Stir that all together. And I'm just going to spread this all over the whole thing. Side, let that dry. Combine that with that. We'll wait for that to dry. It's gonna lighten up just a little bit as it dries, but already like that's got way more character than it did before. So when that dries, I'm gonna go around this little seam here and I'm gonna hit it with some kind of a dark green to give it a little mossy look, like it's been sitting around for a while. Third coat of clears on there, so while that's drying, I'm gonna add green. I got this little jungle green color. Oh yeah, that looks nice and jungly. Okay, now I've got this bag of moss that I picked up at Michael's a while ago. I'm going to use a couple of these pieces, maybe some of these around the edge here. Alright, so I guess I'm going to glue this down first. Let that set. I'll start adding the moss. Alright, I got the moss laid out how I want it. And then I threw a couple tiny little rocks in there just to make it more interesting. And now I gotta glue that all on to make sure it doesn't move. I got this little bottle of scenic spray glue. You're supposed to spray it down first, but I have this set up exactly how I want it. So I'm just gonna spray a ton of this on there and hopefully it all stays in place. Dry and See how well it holds. Meanwhile, I'm gonna put another coat on this. Okay, finally, it looks like we're getting that sheen back. It's just getting glossier and glossier by the coat. So I'm just gonna continue to hit it with coats. I think this is, the last one was coat 5, so on to coat 6. Alright, that was what, 6 coats of clear coat? I don't think adding any more is going to do much for that. It's pretty damn glossy. It's not a mirror finish at all like what I wanted, but it looks alright enough. So I'm going to call that done. And then just for fun, because I'm going to have this sitting on a shelf and I'm sure a lot of people won't recognize it, I threw this together in Photoshop, printed it out, printed it in 2 different colors, so you get the black in the background and then the silver on top. Silver wasn't quite shiny enough, so I just put some rub and buff over it to make that nice and shiny. So stick that right there and it's done. So yeah, finally done. And I wish I could say it was a fun build, but it really kind of wasn't. It was just mostly a shit ton of sanding and waiting for paint to dry. But finished product looks pretty good. I initially made this for someone I went to high school with. He hit me up and said, hey, can you print this idol from Indiana Jones? Seems like it'll be an easy print. And yeah, the print was easy, but the rest wasn't. Anyways, thank you for watching. After that, so I hit it with some regular primer. Or did I? No, I didn't.